You've felt it before. The room goes quiet. Someone stops talking mid-sentence, and your whole body tenses up like something just went wrong. Nothing happened. No sound. No danger. Just silence. But your brain reacted like an alarm went off. Here's the strange part. Silence has no volume. It's the absence of sound. And yet somehow, it feels louder, heavier, more alarming than actual noise ever does. That's not a coincidence. That's not you being dramatic. That's a very old survival system, still running in your head, thousands of years after the world it was built for disappeared. Let's talk about why silence feels so loud. Start with something simple. Think about the last time you were home alone at night. The house was quiet, really quiet. And instead of feeling peaceful, you felt on edge. You started listening harder, straining to hear something, anything, a creak, a hum, a car outside. That's your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. For most of human history, silence didn't mean safety. Silence meant something changed. And change, to a brain built for survival, means danger until proven otherwise. Here's the science behind it. Your brain has a structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your internal smoke detector. It doesn't wait for proof of fire. It reacts to smoke, to possibility, to anything that looks like a threat, even before your conscious mind understands what's happening. The amygdala doesn't just respond to loud noises. It responds to sudden change. And silence, especially sudden silence, is one of the biggest changes your senses can register. Picture this. You're walking through a forest thousands of years ago. Birds are singing. Insects are humming. Leaves are rustling. That's the normal soundtrack of a safe environment. Then, suddenly, it stops. Every bird goes quiet at once. If you were standing there back then, that silence wasn't peaceful. That silence meant a predator was near. Animals go quiet when something dangerous moves through their territory. Silence was the warning system before alarms existed. Your ancestors who noticed that silence and reacted to it, the ones who tensed up, went still, and paid attention, survived more often than the ones who shrugged it off. That instinct got passed down, generation after generation, until it landed in you, sitting in a quiet apartment on a Tuesday night, feeling uneasy for no reason you can explain. Your brain isn't malfunctioning, it's remembering. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Silence doesn't just put your body on alert. It changes how your brain processes everything else. Psychologists have studied something called sensory deprivation. That's when one or more of your senses receive little to no input. Sound, light, touch, all reduced. You'd think less input means less activity in the brain. Calm, quiet, rest. The opposite happens. When the outside world goes quiet, your brain doesn't power down. It powers up. It starts searching harder, listening louder for anything it can find. And when it can't find anything, it starts generating its own signals to fill the gap. This is part of why silence can feel unsettling, even oppressive in certain situations. Not because silence is inherently bad, but because your brain is built to constantly monitor for threats, and an empty soundscape gives it nothing to monitor except itself. Ever notice how your own heartbeat sounds louder at night? How your thoughts feel louder in a quiet room? That's the same mechanism. Nothing external to focus on. So your brain turns its full attention inward, amplifying everything it finds there. Silence doesn't remove stimulation. It redirects it. There's a psychological experiment worth knowing here. It's called the Ganzfeld effect. Ganzfeld is a German word meaning entire field. In these experiments, participants were placed in environments with completely uniform sensory input. No variation in sound, no variation in light, just a flat, unchanging field of nothing. Within minutes, many participants began experiencing hallucinations, sounds that weren't there, shapes, voices, patterns. Their brains, starved of real input, started manufacturing their own. This tells us something important about how the brain works. It's not built to sit in emptiness. It's built to process a constant stream of information. Take that stream away, even for a short period, and the brain fills the void itself, sometimes in ways that feel very real. That's why silence, especially prolonged silence, can feel more unsettling than noise. Noise gives your brain something concrete to process. Silence gives it nothing, and nothing is harder for a threat detection system to sit with than something. Now, let's bring this closer to your daily life, because this isn't just about dark rooms and old forests. Think about awkward silence in conversation. Someone asks a question, and there's a pause before the answer. Even a 2 or 3 second pause can feel excruciating. Why does that tiny gap feel so uncomfortable? Because conversation, to your brain, is a form of social safety. When people are talking, exchanging signals, responding to each other, everything feels regulated and predictable. The moment that exchange stops, your brain reads it as uncertainty. Did I say something wrong? Is something off? Are they upset? Silence in conversation triggers the same ancient alarm as silence in a forest. honest. It's not really about sound anymore. It's about the absence of confirmation that everything is okay. This is also why silence is used so effectively and sometimes so painfully in relationships. The silent treatment isn't loud. It isn't aggressive on the surface, but it can feel like one of the most distressing forms of conflict a person can experience. That's because it removes the signals your brain relies on to know where it stands with another person. No words, no tone, no feedback, just an absence. And your ancient alarm system doesn't know how to process absence. It only knows how to fill it with worst-case assumptions. Here's another place this shows up. Public speaking. One of the most common fears people report isn't stumbling over words or forgetting what to say. It's the silence that follows. The pause after you finish a sentence, before anyone responds, laughs, or reacts. That silence feels unbearable to a lot of people, far more than the noise of an audience whispering or shifting in their seats ever would. Because in that silence, your brain has nothing to confirm safety. No laughter to signal approval. No nodding to signal understanding. Just a blank space your mind rushes to fill with judgment, rejection, and failure. None of that has to be true. It's just your brain doing what it has always done, treating unexplained silence as a signal that something has gone wrong. So what do you do with all of this? Understanding why silence feels loud doesn't make the feeling disappear completely, but it does change your relationship to it. The next time a room goes quiet and your chest tightens, you don't have to interpret that as evidence that something is actually wrong. You can recognize it for what it is, an old alarm system reacting to an old kind of danger that most of the time isn't there anymore. The silence after you speak isn't proof you failed. The pause in a conversation isn't proof someone is upset. The quiet house at night isn't proof something is lurking. It's your brain running a program written for a world that mostly doesn't exist anymore, still doing its job the only way it knows how. That doesn't mean silence is never worth paying attention to. Sometimes stillness really does mean something changed, but most of the time, the discomfort you feel isn't information about the world around you. It's information about how old and how careful your brain still is. So the next time silence feels heavier than noise, remember, you're not imagining it. You're not weak for noticing it. You're carrying a survival instinct built over thousands of years, one that once kept your ancestors alive in a world full of real, immediate danger. The room may be quiet, but somewhere underneath that quiet, your brain is still listening, the way it always has, waiting just in case.